and welcome to another episode of the Happy Head podcast. Today, what can I say? I've got a friend who I've never spoken to before, Shiggy. Hi, Shiggy.
Hello.
Now, Shiggy and I, we know each other from a distance. I guess that's fair to say. We're in similar groups on Facebook. We've got similar interests. Apart from that, she does all kinds of strange things that I've never had a chance to do. But we'll talk about that later on. How are you doing?
Yeah, not bad. Not bad amidst the madness. Doing good.
Yeah. Now, listen, folks. If you hear any odd noises during this podcast, or if you're watching this on video, there is a guest, or we're not actually a guest, it's a permanent visitor in Shiggy's side of the thing over there. Yeah. He's not there at the minute. You point, oh, there she is. You can
Yeah,
see right in the
he's
corner there. Well, for those that you're watching, listening to the podcast, you can't see, but Shiggy's pointing to the back of her room, and there's a cat. What kind of cat is he?
he's a Canadian Sphinx.
A Canadian Sphinx.
Yes,
Tell me,
hairless
what is it?
basically.
Taylor, yeah. Has he got the
If
pointy
you,
ears?
he does. If you have ever watched Austin Powers, and Doctor Evil comes out of the cryogenic freezer, and Mr. Bigglesworth is no longer a fluffy Persian cat. He's now this hairless thing. That's what Icarus is. He's that. He's a Mr. Bigglesworth, probably a cousin, distant cousin or something.
Oh, Icarus, what a great name.
Yes, for a hairless boy who loves the sun, unfortunately, for my own stresses in life.
So, what are you up to these days, Shiggy?
A lot and nothing at the same time, being under what we can effectively call national house arrest. Um, I edit audio for a living as a sound engineer, and I edit audiobooks and I edit podcasts. So it's good. Like, this whole thing's been good because people are now realizing, hey, maybe I should do a thing, and I'm like, hey, I can help you, and they're like, okay. But like you said, I do a lot of other things. My bouldering, so my rock climbing, my Brazilian jiu-jitsu, my DJing. I do event security for festivals and nightclubs and stuff. All of that has died a death. So yeah, I'm a bit restless.
So, you just kind of glossed over several different activities there. So, event security, bouldering, uh, Brazilian Jiu Jitsu,
Yeah,
DJing.
yeah.
That's a hell of a lot of stuff that's going on.
It is, it is. But I'm one of those people who has a brain that doesn't shut up, and there's a lot of output, and if I don't put that output into something, it becomes a little bit destructive. So, yeah, I have a lot of energy. Always been hyperactive as a child, and my parents figured this out from day dot. Just like, throw her at things, throw her at as many things as possible, and the child will get tired. It took a lot. Like, my extracurricular activities were ridiculous. I did everything at school. And even then, I still probably wouldn't go to sleep until 2 in the morning. Um,
Wow.
and that's still the same now. Like, right now, it's quite tough because I still stay up until 4 in the morning, and then I wake up at 8 or 9 or something, and it's yeah, ADHD. Woo.
How the hell are you coping given all of those kind of physical activities that you're used to doing? And that, like we were talking about earlier on, for what, almost a year now, we've been locked down. How are
Mm.
you coping energy wise? What are you doing to kind of like dissipate some of that energy?
It's, you know what, I'm not gonna say I've got this special like 7-step thing to do. Like, I have good days and then I have absolutely terrible days. During summer, it was easier just, taking myself out for a walk like a dog. Just kind of just doing things where I'm like, okay, I need to physically exert myself, otherwise I'm going to go mad. Equally during summer, I've got a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu mat. That black and pink mat in the background is a thick enough mat to roll on. So if you don't know what Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is, think of UFC without the hitting and kicking. Right, so just a lot of hugging on the floor and trying to strangle each other. That's Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu basically. And I have friends, and we'd go out in the park and we'd roll, like, Monday afternoon. Like, two or three of us would bring our mats and we just like stick them together, and we just basically be hugging each other on the floor in the park, which looked weird, right?
Yeah.
For a lot of people, a lot of, I live in Clapham, and a lot of mummies and daddies and, that whole posh lot, they're seeing people simulate murder in the middle of a park with little Timmy. And, they'd stand and watch, and then the kids would be like, Mommy, what are they doing? And one of us would shout, Brazilian Jiu Jitsu. And then the kid would be like, what's Brazilian Jiu Jitsu? and the parents would have to answer the awkward questions, which was fun. But in winter, we can't do that because it's too cold. It's wet. I don't particularly want to bring my mat home and have to shove it in the bathtub and give it a good rinsing because it'll fall apart. So winter's tough. Winter's been really, really tough for me. I don't go out and walk as much. I've got all this kit behind me, my dumbbells and kettlebells and club bells and whatever, and yoga mats, and I just hibernate. At the moment, it's just been a lot of hibernation. To be honest, Icarus, I got him as an emotional support animal 6 years ago because I have attempted suicide a few times in the past, and lots and lots of therapy. I've had therapy since I was 18, and after the third time, when I was having just like a good moment where I could have a little bit more mental clarity to kind of ask myself the questions that I needed to ask, one question was, why is it happening now and why hasn't it happened before? And I'm like, okay, what's the common denominator I've always had in the past? A pet. Like, I'm raised on a farm. I'm a farm child. Beyond all of this, cows and chickens and ducks and geese and all that jazz makes me happy. But I haven't had that for a while. So I thought, okay, well, if I get a pet that can stay in the flat, at least that will, I've got something else I need to look after, and I can't, be stuck in my own brain for 24, 48 hours at a time because this thing needs food and water and attention. And he is a very affectionate boy. Like, right now, I've turned the radiators on, so he's not on me, but usually he's in my hoodie, right? Like a baby. Like, literally just on here, right here on my chest. So just like do everything, and that's why I've got bite marks on my microphone foam thing, because sometimes I forget he's there, and then he just starts eating the foam, thinking it's cake. So yeah, so that's a very long, drawn out answer. I just go through phases and try to stay on top of it. Really, just physical movement of any sort.
Yeah, I didn't know that about the attempted suicides. I 3 goes I've had. The last attempt, the most serious one, was back in '93, and that one, I almost killed myself. I was that close. I had it planned out meticulously, and I did what I did, and I wasn't expecting anybody back in the building for about 4 or 5 hours, which was plenty of time. And then, as these things happen, somebody came home 3 hours earlier than expected, found me comatose, 999, rushed to hospital. And the only thing I remember about the entire episode was this is in central London. I can't remember the name of the hospital. So I'm even in a ward. I'm in a corridor on a gurney, on a trolley thing, and I'm howling like a wolf, like a banshee, because they've injected me with something, and it's a wave of pain that is just indescribable. So there's like a moment of calm, and it builds up a bit like an air raid siren, and then it gets to the stage where I can't do anything. I just have no choice but to really, really loud. I mean, 10 times louder than that, maybe more. Sure. And then the wave would die off again. And I was carted off I wasn't sectioned, strangely enough, but I was advised very strongly to go to this place. And it was spending time in there with some certain characters, which we'll talk about another time, that persuaded me that I was never, ever, ever, no matter how bad things got, was ever going to try and attempt it again, because I'd got close. There was clearly the universe, God, or whoever had decided that it wasn't my time and that I had some reason to serve. So, okay, fuck it. If that's the case, I'm not even going to try again, because I do not want to go back to that establishment ever again. And so, like you said a minute ago, the 7 steps to keep myself sane. I don't have 7 steps, but I've got a series of things, for want of a better phrase, that I use. If I feel things coming on, I can kind of go to them, because it's depression. I've been clinically depressed since the year dot, and literally that's what I've done. Is Churchill called his depression his black dog. Well, mine is like a dot on a piece of paper, like a full stop. And sometimes, not recently, it gets really, really big and becomes like one of those cartoon black holes. The hero is running, being chased by the bad guy. They whip out the Acme box open it up, and there's a black hole. They drop it on the floor. Bad guy comes along, bang, disappears. The good guy picks up the black hole, sticks it back in their pocket, and carries on running. And that's what it was like to me. This thing would get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, and it would eventually kind of engulf me.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to literally claw my way out until it was too late. So what I do now is the instant I recognize that little black dot is starting to expand, I kind of stamp on it and take action so that it shrinks back down. Mm-hmm. And that's how I deal with it. I've reconciled myself to understand that I'm probably never, ever going to get rid of that. But that's not really a problem because now I recognize the symptoms, for want of a better phrase.
Yeah.
I can see when that dot's expanding and can deal with it straight away, which is a good thing.
Yeah. Yeah. It's being able to have that foresight, I think, is slowly but surely becoming more common with people. As a female, I recognize exactly what you're saying. Like, I call mine a dark dog. It's saying like a black dog. I just prefer darkness because darkness seems to be engulfing and doesn't quite have edges. Because like for me, I've had clinical depression in the past, but I don't have it all the time. I do have SAD, because I'm a Kenyan baby, and we do sun 12 hours a day, and we do darkness 12 hours a day. That's it. It gets maybe 7 degrees is the coldest, and that's winter for us, but most of the time it's about 18 degrees or so. So all of this hoodies and all that jazz, alien concept. But I've been here for 20 years and I still haven't adjusted. But something I've been doing lately is I track my hormonal cycles as well, because that actually has a huge impact. A lot of women, we jokingly talk about our PMS, and we have our one day where we're crazy, right? And sometimes it's just stress and life and everything, but other times it is genuinely an increase of one of the hormones, the stimulated hormones, progesterone or FSH, was it follicle stimulating hormone, estrogen. There's this cocktail that we have that's constantly changing. And I discovered only probably about 10 years ago that I have certain issues. I have fibroids in, around the ovaries, which means my hormonal levels can be slightly elevated or slightly depleted beyond that which is normal. And as a result, I've just been tracking for the last 10 years, and I know exactly when I'm going to have a dark day. Lockdown has changed that, which has been interesting to track, because it's like, you should be okay. And it's like, no, I'm not okay. Everything's horrible, and I am a dumpster fire. I am trash. I am literally trash. The app is a lie. Everything's a lie. And then, 4 days later, I'm just like, oh, okay, so I'm going to have to augment my tracking, and, my hormones have now changed. And I think it's important for people to realize that, we're not helpless with everything. Managing and befriending, whatever you want to call it, the black dog or the dark dot, or the dark day, black day, the hormone monster, whatever you want to give it a name. I think giving things a name is great, which means you can manage it. It's like, if an unwanted friend comes to the door, so you just open the latch, you're just like, what you want? Like, I want to make your life a misery. That you can do it through the door today. You're not allowed in today. Just say all the mean stuff through the door. I need to go get a cup of coffee so we can just get through this, and then when you're done, I'll just close the door. Okay? Well, if that's all I'm getting, fine. You're a terrible human. Mm-hmm. You're a crap. Yeah. Like, you shouldn't even exist. Yeah. Wait, I need to go get another coffee. Like, that's a better way to manage it. So
I think that's half the battle. Giving your thing, well, no, first of all, accepting that you've got the thing, and then giving it a name, because then, like you say, it becomes some kind of living thing which you can deal with, like the unwanted friend or the stray dog that won't go away, that kind of thing. And and that's what took me a long time to realize, probably until after 93, because prior to 93, I was probably in denial. I knew I was depressed, and I knew I was struggling with it, but it's been a guy, I'm not depressed, I can manage it. It's just one of those things. Yeah. And then after 93, I realized that wasn't the way that was going to help me get on in my life and do it. Yeah, I still have dark days. In 2017, my dad died, and we weren't close because I'm like the black sheep of the family, the outsider, as it were. and we weren't close. I'd not seen him for ages. But when I got told of his death, I was just floored. I just went through this thing and it was incredible. I recognized the good thing about it was that I realized it wasn't depression, it was grief, but it was so strong and so powerful. And it just hit me like a wave. And for like 2 weeks, I couldn't go to work because I was working at the time. I couldn't talk to anyone, I couldn't eat, couldn't drink. And I literally spent probably the best part of 2 weeks on my sofa.
Mm-hmm.
And then it kind of, the wave, as waves do, dissipated, and I was able to slowly pull myself out of it. But since then, I've had the odd dark day, like you say. But
Yeah.
yeah, apart from that, I'm really lucky, touch wood.
Yeah, it's, I mean, trying to fight it, I always find the more you try and fight something that is undesirable, the more you kind of speed towards it. So if you just sit back and just be like, oh, this is happening, and just make yourself as comfortable as possible, it works better. And you talking about your father's death, I feel is a good good segue into why we're even talking in the first place, because I've recently, twice now, because my father actually passed away quite recently, but the main things, like my mother committed suicide. So she completed suicide, not even committed, which is a weird terminology, which I discovered through another talk, that committing suicide was, and probably still is to a point, a criminal offense.
I think it still is, actually.
Yeah. And I never knew that up until literally I was on a round table with some mental health therapists and professionals, and they're just like, yeah, the committing suicide is a criminal offense. I'm just like, but who are you going to arrest? They're dead. And I was clearly the comedic kind of angle for the round table, because everyone else was far too serious for my liking. But my mother did complete suicide in 2019, May 2019. And like I started a podcast around that as my own form of talk therapy after I had to go and do everything. So I didn't really have the opportunity to grieve as much, because I was the eldest daughter of the two. There's my younger half brother and me. And then there's the rest of the family from, her siblings, so my uncles and aunties and whatnot. And I think the amount of time I had to grieve was approximately 12 minutes. And then I had to, go forth, because my stepdad, who was 91 at the time, so, he adopted me, so I'm half adopted, he called me on Facebook. And I'm like, you don't know how to use Facebook. Learning how to phone someone on Facebook. Like, what is this? How are you doing this? And that's when, when you've got that thing in the back of your head kind of going,
Yeah.
this is unusual, answer the phone. Something wrong. There's something wrong here. This is not normal. So I pick up. One of my stepsisters is speaking to me in broken English, because they're Israeli, they're Dutch Israeli. And she's full Israeli, and, she can only really speak Hebrew, but she's really desperately trying to speak in English. And she's like, Shiggy, I'm so sorry. And I'm like, what? And she's like, it's your mother. And I'm like, what? Just tell me what's going on. And like you, my relationship with my mother wasn't great. It had fallen apart. Like, the more I started standing up for myself and standing in my own existence, the less of a relationship I had with my mother, because there's this in psychotherapy, there's this dynamic, right? It's the PAC kind of dynamic that you swing between, like, parent, adult, and child. And then, if the dynamic is unhealthy and it's not balanced, where you're speaking adult to adult, there's always going to be this thing like someone is going to try and pull rank on somebody, right? And it's not intentional. It's not someone deliberately pulling rank. It's more the other person is pulling a lower rank to force you into another position. So then, they can say you're a bad person. So my mum would always force me into a weird parent position. And I'm like, no, but I'm just an adult. And she's like, well, no, you must be the child because I'm the mother. I'm like, I'm an adult. Like, I'm 25. Just slow your roll. You can't talk to me like that. Anyway, so all of that was falling apart. And I was standing my ground. I'm just like, I don't need this anymore. You've raised me. You've done your thing. You sent me off to boarding school at the age of 14. So I've been on my own for a very long time. And now you have to kind of deal with the repercussions. But yeah, by this time our relationship really wasn't great. I was of the opinion of like, my number hasn't changed in 15 years and it's not going to change. If you need to talk to me, I'm at the end of, I'm always on Skype, I'm always on by my phone, I'm always on Facebook, although I blocked her on Facebook because she was getting quite nasty, to the point that friends were like, who is this woman and why is she being so horrible? I'm like, it's my mom. She's like, that's unacceptable. I'm like, African parents, slight toxic kind of relationship, and they're just like, you just need to stop. So Alza, my stepsister, is just like, I'm really, really sorry. Your mother has gone. And I'm like, okay. Me practicing stoicism, I'd already mentally prepared for, maybe her heart going, because we have heart issues in our family. She had her thyroid removed and she was on a cocktail of like medication, like 20 tablets. But she'd also drink whilst on those as well. So I'm just like,
wow.
Well, like you're literally, you're attempting every single time you drink, right? So I'd mentally prepared myself for all of that, and then also the eventualities of potential suicide, because I've done it. I'm under no disillusion that my parents probably haven't got their own issues, because it does tend to kind of come down a genetic segue. So I'd planned for, alcohol overdosing, medicine overdosing, knives, hanging, all that jazz, except for the one way that she decided to go, because when you're in England, you don't associate guns with anything other than maybe, I don't know, just things that don't really associate you. Like, if it's rough, it's like, if you're a part of a rough life, then it's got to be really, really rough for you to have a gun. In America, people have open carry. They can be the sweetest, Mary Jane, but she's got a Glock.
Scary.
Down the street. It's terrifying. But yeah, my stepsister said, she shot herself, and just full body paralysis. Like you, I was in a pub with my partner at the time, and we just finished watching Avengers, right, with Thanos talking about the perfect balance where 50% of the world has to be eradicated for balance to exist, and we were just talking about the existential kind of philosophies behind that, because that's my favorite thing to do. And then this was a little bit ironic, and I was outside the pub, screamed. So like, the howl that you had, I just had this primal, just, I can feel it now, my whole body's kind of tingling, just every aspect of me just kind of just came to this nucleus, and I just screamed, just the loudest diaphragm pushing, from the very bottom of my being kind of scream. For a long time, I've got a very, very, very healthy set of lungs. And a lot of people just down the street, just down, way down. This is in Fulham, and it's a very kind of residential area, and it's just one of these random pubs in the center of residential space. So a quiet pub,
Yeah.
But there's me shouting like a freaking banshee outside, just on the floor, just a complete mess. And people, you can always tell English people from foreigners, based on how much space they give you when you're being really emotional. So it's a horrible stereotype, and I have had people telling me to stop doing it, but I will never stop because it's true. Just watching people walk by, and then they're just like, woo, emotional person, and just like detour and just like, give you a whole bunch of space, and then they come back again.
It's so true. I don't care what anybody says, it's true.
It's true. And I just observed it. I'm going through my thing, and I'm screaming and crying and and they're trying to tell me what's going on, and I'm just going through it, because I know what's going to happen next is, that the soldier in me is going to come in and take charge, because we have a mission. We got like probably the biggest mission ever we're about to kind of embark on. But then the Spanish couple, they come right by me. The lady just touches my shoulder and she says, I hope you're okay. And she just carries on walking. I'm like, that's nice. Just that. Like, didn't have to say anything. Didn't have to ask if you're okay. Just, I hope you're okay. A little bit of a physical touch. Carries on. And yeah, after that, just I got my shit together. And then we started having like, game plan. I'm like, okay, where's my brother? Because he was there with my mum. He put his hand on the door when she shot herself. I started getting all these details in, and she was on the phone. She was obviously a danger to herself, but the guys listening to her figured that out a little bit too late, but luckily there was a police officer in the apartment. So he came upstairs, banged on the door. My brother opened it. He's just like, what's going on? But unfortunately, she shot herself because she locked the door, and they banged through. But, she was she completed it because she shot herself underneath her chin, like,
Oh,
straight into the brain, right? She watches a lot of History Channel, so she knows how to do it properly. Because if you've never watched the History Channel, you have no idea what I'm on about. In America, there's the History Channel, which is just basically loads of history kind of docudramas. And they have this huge thing where they talk about, serial killers and murder things and all these kind of things, but they just go into detail, right? And if you love watching that stuff, you could literally become a sociopath. Okay, it's pretty gnarly. I tried watching it with my mum, when we were on better terms and I visited, and I'm just like, I can't watch this stuff, man. I feel like I know how to go and kill people, and like how to have the perfect getaway. And she's just like, yeah, it's great, isn't it? I'm like, no,
yeah.
I'm gonna go watch South Park. That's my sociopathical kind of thing. But yeah, so she knew how to shoot herself, and the really painful thing for me is because I've shot her gun. She had a .357 caliber Magnum revolver. All right, Magnums are elephant guns.
Mm.
They are designed
Clint
to kill
Eastwood.
things. Yeah, exactly. So she had a personal one. It was a short nub, whatever kind of revolver. Um, and I shot it at a shooting range 5 years ago, and I had to use both my hands holding it and squeezing the trigger. Like, you can't. It's not like a Glock or a 9mm XMD or whatever. You don't. There's no support in that trigger. You have to be fully committed with both hands and give it a really good squeeze. Right, so kind of being able to do that right under your chin and just giving it a good squeeze and making sure you don't go off to an angle, by the way, because that can happen. And then you're left with a blown up face. Anyway, so I was just going through all of that, but I had to kind of lock all of that into a box and put it on the shelf because I have stuff to do. And I won't go into the whole journey because that could take like 90 minutes to kind of just go into extreme detail. So I'll give you the light version. Everyone asks you questions, right? When someone's committed suicide, you being the closest person, everyone starts with the best question in the world: why? And you're just like, I don't fucking know.
Yeah, as if you
Like,
know the answer, if you're sort of sitting in their brain while they do it, kind of thing.
yeah, exactly. I sat on her shoulder. In fact, I told her to do it. I know exactly why. I actually do know why, only because I've been there. And it's like you get tired. The pain of existing versus the pain of not existing just goes so far over to like, there's nothing. We've been trying. We've been trying for so long. And you know what? I'm done. I'm done. I have nothing. That's it. But that took me 4 or 5 months after this whole ordeal to actually kind of come to. But people asking why at the beginning, I just started getting really sharp with people. Like, I don't fucking know. I need to go get my mother. Like, are you helping me or are you not helping me? All right, full on militant Shiggy kind of came into play. And yeah, so I live in England. My mum did her thing in America, and we're all from Kenya. And I had to bring her home. So I call it the maternal crusade because that's basically what it was. So my stepdad miraculously kind of stepped up to the plate, even though we hadn't spoken in 15, 20 years. And he's like, what do you need? I'm like, well, flying over there is going to be difficult. I'll pull all the money out of my business and, kind of stay in a hotel, in an Airbnb or couch surf or something. And he's like, no, I've got that. So he covered that. Just literally, I didn't even ask him. He's just like, your flight's been paid for. You're staying in a long stay hotel, not far from where she lives, right? I need you to be okay, to be comfortable at least. And I'm like, okay, thanks. So I flew over. My partner wanted to come, and I'm like, you've got your own problems. Like, our relationship was bad. And I'm like, I don't need to mother you whilst I'm dealing with my own thing. My uncle, same thing from Kenny's like, do you need me to fly over and support you? I'm like, you've just lost your sister. You're going to be drinking copious amounts of alcohol. I also do not need to mother you. Right? I respect your coping mechanism. I just don't want to have to like hold you. I cannot hold space for myself and you at the same time. So I kindly declined, everyone, saying, hey, you need someone to hold you. I'm like, no, I'm good. I'm good. I'm at the front of the spear. Like, I can manage it. I don't know how, but I will. So I flew over on my own. My uncle, another uncle, thankfully was there, and he was super supportive. He has his own cancer issues. His cancer was in remission. just a very tired individual, but again had that strength enough to kind of help me with just like movements and figuring stuff out and opening the door of her apartment for the first time. Because there's no field manual for any of this, dealing with a parent who's killed themselves. And I watch a lot of Dexter. So my mom's got the History Channel. I watch Dexter. If you've never watched Dexter, it's horrendous. It's this very mild-mannered, well-doing individual who likes to slice people up because of justice. All right. And he's very meticulous in what he does, but he's a very messy boy. So lots of blood everywhere, just slash marks and all this kind of stuff. So my brain was just thinking, I'm going to walk into this putrid, festering, like, apartment of death. Right? Even though it hadn't been that long, it had been 2 weeks since she did it. So the turnaround was quite quick. But just my brain was just like, prepare for the smells, prepare for the feeling, prepare for the energetic change. There might be remnants of her left on the walls, like all this kind of stuff. And I opened the door, took a deep breath of air outside, held my breath and walked in. And it was fine. It was just like her apartment before. The electricity was still running. The air conditioning was still running. The fridges were still on. There are a few fruit flies, but it's fruit flies, not those blue bottle flies.
Not the big monster flies.
Yeah, that are always associated with death and the giant maggots and all that stuff. And it was fine. And I'm like, okay, I'm still holding my breath. Let me breathe. And I took a breath. I'm like, okay, this is cool. This is fine. It's a normal space. But it just feels like death because there's an emptiness, that there's a vacation of an absence of humans. And then I eventually, went round to her bedroom and stuff. And because of the way she killed herself, the bullet didn't leave her body. So there was no mess at all. And the police obviously, took the mattress and took all the bedding and like 50% of the bed, just the frame was left. So that was huge, just kind of, it was relief. Still the grief, like, holy fuck, this has actually happened. But also, there's no remnants of violence, right? I didn't have to experience the violence that she committed to herself. And then, just collecting stuff, and, she had a whole bunch of stuff, and you could tell when you walk into someone's space and they're not okay, their actual living space will tell you a lot of what's going on. Especially if they're a very fastidious, clean, tidy person and they literally live in a storage box, right? With just a path, a path to the bedroom, a path to the kitchen, and a path to the front door, and a path to the other room. That's it. Everything else, sofas covered, dining tables covered, any surface that could be covered, just covered in papers and books and collected things. And I'm like, wow, like, she's been having a tough time for a very, very long time, but just wouldn't let anybody in. So going through that, I just had a mission to get as much stuff as I could to create a virtual profile of her in case I needed to do anything. I don't know why. Like, again, there's no field manual, and you don't really, you don't know what to do. You go in and you're like, okay, here's a whole bunch of stuff. I need to get rid of all of this as quickly as possible because I only had a month in America. And I need to get my mum, because I need to take my mum home. But I also need to maybe have a virtual representation of her. I have no idea why, but I feel like maybe that's the thing to do. So that's what I did, found her passport, social security number, it's weird. I managed to access all her accounts, just because I'm a little bit clever, apparently. But just going from one password, when you get someone's email account, it's really startling how easy it is to go into other things and just get access to everything just from one password, right? And she wrote the password on her suicide note, and I'm like, okay, cool. So I just started using this password across everything, and I got access to 75% of that stuff with that one password. And I just changed the passwords of all the other ones because I already had access to her email accounts. And I'm just like, I need to change all my passwords because this is way too easy. Like bank accounts, I had access to all her bank accounts, but there was nothing there, but whatever was there, I gave to my brother just to make sure he was okay. So, that side of things, trying to figure stuff out, you never know what needs to be done. If someone's got a will, it's way easier. you know, because you kind of know what needs to be executed and you can get someone to execute it. And if there's estates, you know, all of that stuff. My mom, everything was cleared out, which actually made it easier for me as well. Because I'm like, okay, cool, there's nothing here. There's no outstanding debts. I have death certificates. Send death certificates to the appropriate places for them to stop pursuing a dead person, you know, have her formally registered as dead in a state. And now it's the body. Going to claim the body was tough. Thankfully, I didn't have to see it to identify it because she didn't blow her face off. So the guys there were just like, yeah, no, she's fine. You don't need to go and see her. Like, you've brought her ID, you've brought your ID. We can tell you guys look exactly alike. You know, like it's crazy how identical we look. Cool. Here's her belongings and stuff. So that was kind of harrowing, but you know, I didn't actually have to see my mother's body in the entire time of getting her from the States to, you know, being buried in Kenya. Didn't have to see it. The only time I did kind of see her was when she was cremated. And I don't know if you've ever had to have someone cremated. It's a very surreal experience where, you know, you talk about a body in third person. And I use dark humor as a coping mechanism. I know this because I've done it when my grandmother passed away, when my uncle passed away. Apparently at the age of 2, when my grandfather passed away, I said to my mom, like, why has granddad got cotton stuffed up his nose? He can't breathe. And my mom was just like, stop. And I'm like, no, but he's in the casket, because they did an open casket funeral for him. And he was quite a high level person in Kenya, you know, associated with the government and everything. And we all had to wear our best dress. And he was, you know, he looked dead. And I'm just like, why has he got cotton up his nose? And I wanted to pull it out. I literally was reaching over to pull this cotton out of his nose. My mom was just like, stop it. But I'm like, but he can't breathe. I was getting upset. That there was cotton stuffed in a dead person's nose. And I wanted to take it out. But he'd obviously been embalmed and, you know, preserved because he was going to be on show for a few days. So, which is weird. I never understood that, but whatever. So yeah, I identified that dark humor is my coping mechanism for a lot of things. And some of my therapists kind of noted, like, you know, you laugh when you talk about really horrendous things. I'm like, do I? They're like, yeah. I'm like, is that bad? They're like, no, it's fine. Just understand that you do it and you might make other people uncomfortable. And I'm like, cool, I like that. You know, because other times people be like, you shouldn't be laughing. This is death. And I'm like, death can be funny.
Yeah, but that's how we deal with a lot of dark things, by using humor. Especially in the UK, a lot of humor is very, very dark because it's a coping mechanism. So, how did you manage? What did you do once you'd got back home again to your normal life, in inverted commas, back in the UK? Because obviously things were pretty surreal when you're in the States. When you get back home to Kenya, and you've got to go all the stuff there. But you're surrounded with people. But when you come home, you're back in your flat. You're on your own. Did things hit you then, or how did you deal with it?
So it was really protracted. It was really like strung out because, you know, in Kenya there's lots of tribal things to deal with, but I didn't really deal with any of that. And, you know, my cremated mother was put in a closed casket and then she was buried. And hearing your mother rattling around in a box and going through the processions of everything, I was very stressed out. There's photos of me looking very, 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 very pissed off and annoyed at everything. But I think that's just me being tired. But getting home, I had my partner at the time. We were living together. So it's a sizable 1-bedroom flat for London, you know, zone 2 in London, quite close to the center. Great for 1 person and a cat. Pretty good for 2 people and a cat. Horrendous for 3 people and a cat. So me, my cat, my partner, and his son, we were all living here, right? Just because of weird circumstances, you know, he was about to get booted out of his apartment, and I'm like, just crash at mine, it's fine, we'll figure something out. Like, it'll be uncomfortable for a year, but, you know, we'll do the thing. But he started going waywards, like, far earlier, from May. Like, I think our relationship was falling apart in January. But I was just like, no, we can make it work. To be honest, I think I was in the relationship more for the son, just having stability, because my family got broken by that, and there's one woman in this world I absolutely hate, and if she ever tried to talk to me, I would hit her. And I wouldn't want that. I don't want kids to have that, because that's a horrible thing to have to harbor. So I was trying to keep things as stable as possible for him. But yeah, the partner had a drug problem and a drink problem, and, you know, I was trying to help him through that, again, being a therapist and a mother. But when I came back, I'm like, I need to get rid of you because you don't want to help yourself. I'm tired of helping you. I've reached my tether. I need my space back so I can look after myself. If you don't want to get better, then, I'm done. So he went and did ayahuasca. And no amount of plant medicine can cure an asshole. Just putting that out there. Okay. Lots of narcissistic people. I'm going to go do ayahuasca and I'm going to find myself. I'm like, okay. Comes back vegan for 10 days. And then there's goat's cheese in the fridge. 10 days later, after he comes back from his whole ceremony, there's goat's cheese in the fridge. I'm like, I thought you were vegan. It's like, oh, well, yeah, I thought I wanted some goat's cheese. And I'm like, you're never going to change. So, out. So yeah, I just got very short with him, and I let him basically hang himself by way of just asking him questions, the lead kind of generating questions where people kind of eventually just kind of create their own soup to boil in. And he wanted an easy and friction-free life. And I'm like, okay, I agree, we should break up. And he's like, that's not what I said. I'm like, no, but I hear what you're saying. If you want a friction-free and, pain-free life, I'm not the person for you, because I am pain and torment, and right now I'm going to go through so much shit, I'm going to make your life a living hell. So I think we should break up. And yeah, basically that was September. So I finally got my space back in September. So from May, June, July, August, so 4 months of just having my armor on, getting things done, making sure everyone else is okay, not looking after myself. Finally in September, I had space to breathe. And to be honest, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu was what helped me through all of that. So emotionally going through it, just going back to the academy, and everyone knew what was going on. They knew what was going on with my partner as well, because we both went to the same academy. And having everyone just looking out for you and making a protective bubble around you is actually quite an amazing experience, because I actually felt I could just rest and breathe and just have really frank conversations about how I was feeling, with people who cared. My friends who choke me on a daily basis actually care about me as well. And that's where I actually had my grieving and healing process, was around people, because I realized my mother made herself such an island, right? Which is not a normal thing to do. Like, isolating yourself as a human is the most counterintuitive thing to do, even as an introvert. It doesn't matter. I don't care who you are. You need to be around a person. Maybe not talk to them, maybe not interact with them, but just sit,
I completely agree. Totally agree. I mean, I live alone, so COVID's really hard for me, simply because I can't go to coffee shops and watch the world go by. I can't go have a pint in a pub, that kind of thing. That's how I do my peopling, and obviously going dating and stuff like that, which is just non-existent right now. So I get it, and it's just so sad when you see people that live that lifestyle. Like you said, your mum was in her house and she just had corridors because there was just no space.
Mm-hmm.
And she's not the only one. You hear all these stories, and it's just so sad. So BJJ helped you,
Mm-hmm.
and being surrounded by people and having, like you said, this protective bubble. It's just so important to have access to that kind of thing when it comes to grieving and healing.
Yeah. Yeah, it really is. And I in September as well, that's when I actually started my podcast, Getting Shiggy With,
Mm-hmm.
properly. Because as much as I love my therapists and counselors, they're expensive.
Oh yeah.
They're good at what they do, but also they're really freaking expensive. And at the time, I'm financially exhausted as well. So I just started a podcast just to completely, frankly, and openly and wholly just express everything. And I'm still doing it now. It's very intermittent, because lockdown has kind of messed up my mental capacity to just riff, once a week. But the first official episode, was Suicide Happens on a Monday, because that's what happened. And it's about 92 minutes of me just completely going into full detail of the entire journey, because it was so fresh and raw in my head. I just needed an outlet, because, people are great, jiu-jitsu's great, but I just needed to get all the feelings, like even the wrong feelings. All right, there's no real wrong feelings, but
Yeah.
being angry at what my mom had done, being angry at the way she raised me, being angry at her just being a really stupid fucking person. you know, like they're all valid, and
Yeah.
saying it out loud, without judgment is really important. So yeah, therapy and people, and deciding never to be an island. No matter how much I would convince myself no one needs to hear my problems, I can get it done on my own. It's fine. I just said no, I need to tell someone what my problems are. And it's been really good doing that.
Yeah, absolutely. I could not agree more, Shiggy. We have to, even the introverts in the world, we have to share, we have to talk. Because if you, it's like, I don't know, how can I put it? It's like boiling a kettle,
Mm.
yeah, and then blocking off the exit where the steam comes out. At some
Yeah.
stage, if you did that, that kettle is just going to explode.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this is what happens to us. If we don't let it out, if we don't talk to people in some way, shape, or form, then you're just going to boil and explode. And I think that's why, sadly, we have a lot of violence in the world, because people let themselves get to that stage where they just explode and they just hit out at the first person that happens to get in their way, completely innocent bystander, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I'm beginning to realize this more and more and more, that when I do, the things that I'm doing, realizing that people need, we're a social animal, where we were born, going way back to caveman days. We're social. We're built to be social. We're not built to be pumas or,
No.
even lions are social. I'm trying to think of tigers.
Yep.
Tigers are independent, but even then they'll go and find a mate and spend time with the mate.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we have to be more people orientated, because otherwise you just boil over and nobody wants that to happen.
No, no, and a lot of people, I like when people share, like on Facebook or Twitter or whatever, like, I'm just sharing this so people know that someone's always listening. The kind of with the Samaritan numbers. And I'm just sat there going, I see what you're trying to do, but you're coming at it the wrong way
Mm.
around, because your, you know, kind of token activist movement, right, doesn't really cover you as an entire human being. Because there's some people who've posted, like, I just want to post and say, there's always an ear, right? There's always a helpful ear. And I'm just out there going, I would never fucking talk to you about anything, right? Seriously, because I'm like, I see what you do on social media. I see you as a person. I see your overall kind of, the way you digitally represent yourself. I'm like, I don't want to tell you shit, because I don't like you.
Mm.
I don't like you close enough to kind of be like, hey, I'm having a bad day. Just out of the blue going, hey, I'm having a bad day. And they'll just be like, like literally just send the most passive kind of interaction known to man, that stupid like button, right? Even though there's a heart now and a smiley face and all that kind of jazz. It's the most flippant human interaction ever. I'm gonna get off my soapbox because I'll just go off on one. But it's just, people need to get over themselves and just reach out and just be like, hey, I'm just sending you a message because I thought about you, and you don't need to reply, but I just thought I'd say hi because you're in my head. And I wanted to see if you're okay, and if you're not okay, you can do whatever you want. You can not reply. You can send me a stupid GIF. You can send me a video you're watching at the moment. Like, you can just doing something like that, giving someone an avenue, which I feel is like the equivalent of seeing a friend not okay on the sofa and just sitting quietly next to them whilst you're reading your own book.
Yeah, just being there.
Yeah. I feel if people, rather than just, copy and pasting the Samaritans number, Samaritans are great, by the way. Absolutely love them. They've helped me out in a few dark moments. But this kind of slacktivism thing is, it needs to kind of be twisted so people are more active in people's lives. Yeah, just to help with creating connected islands, I suppose.
Yeah, no, I get it. It really pees me off when I see that, because it's kind of like passing the buck. So,
Mm.
yeah, you might need help, but don't talk to me because I'm not very good at listening. Ring these people because they're professionals. Well, we all know what the Samaritan's number is, so why the hell are you posting it? If you want to help people, like you say,
Mm.
be more proactive. Even if you can't listen, just say, look, you can send me a whole diatribe of stuff if you want, and it'll get into my inbox. But no, it's Yeah, I'll get off my soapbox as well, actually. Let's talk about something different because we can go down this alley that 16 hours later, we'll still be going at it.
Yeah.
What are you doing right now, Shiggy? What's your thing at the moment?
Um, so right now I've got my little group called Badass Misfits that I don't really push or show to anyone. There's 28 people in there, and just as and when I'm feeling down, I kind of activate it a little bit. And right now we're doing a 31 days of did the thing. So every day you check in and you say whether you did or didn't do the thing. I don't care what the thing is, right? But you just do something.
Hmm.
And mine was, I found, this yoga. I hate yoga, but I just needed to do something, and it's in the house, and I can stop it whenever I want. Um, but I'm not being harsh on myself. I've skipped probably every other day of this like 31 day yoga challenge, and I'm fine with it because I'm like, I don't need to do it, but I'm doing it. And when I get to say I did the thing, I get a little social media endorphin hit because like in my group I get to go, I did the thing, and everyone's like, yay, she did the thing, and we get to do the thing like with everyone else, and it's so silly, but it's really really rewarding because when you manage to manipulate the endorphin hit, um, in a positive manner with other people, and it doesn't matter what people are doing, they can do whatever they want. Um, it just has to go under the three mantras that I have, which is speak no bullshit to yourself and others, eat no bullshit, and move your body just a little bit. So that's it. That's the three mantras that we used to do every January. So I'm doing that, and yeah, just getting on with work really, and accepting that the world is the way it is, and the UK is going to be the way it is for a while, and just modifying my life to make it manageable. But also, the second airports and like flying and traveling comes back to normal, I am going home. I'm going back to Kenya because I miss it out there, and Kenya's actually coming up quite nicely in the economical sense of things. So I need to go spend some time there because I love England, but it's had 21. Ooh, 21 since 2 days ago. 21 years of my life.
Happy 21st birthday in England.
Thanks. God, I can legally drink now in America as well. This is great. But yeah, that's where I am really with things. Just going with the flow and accepting. We've got this mess for maybe at least another 18 months.
Yeah.
Everyone's like March, yeah, everything will be no, nothing will be back to normal for a very long time. So.
Will things actually get back to normal? But that's another discussion. If people want to get hold of you, Shiggy, where's the best place?
Yeah, so Instagram, I'm very vocal in my Instagram stories because they're very, very you can throw them away after 24 hours, which I love. So Elshig, it's ELSHIG all together. You'll find me on Instagram. I'm on Twitter as well, same thing, Elshig. I'm also on Facebook. If you search Shiggi Pakter, Pakter, I'm the first one up there with usually my face of some description. Or you do facebook.com/Shigimus, like Shigimus Prime, but it's me. That's where I am. I'm also on TikTok, but don't find me. I do stupid stuff on TikTok. No one should see me on TikTok. Yeah, shiggy.co.uk is my website. That's sometimes up, sometimes down, because I design my own websites. I break them when I get stressed out. So Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook are your best bets to find me.
Brilliant. Any parting words? Any kind of final thoughts?
You're gonna be going through shit, and it's okay to go through shit, and just feel your way through it. Don't look at permanent solutions to temporary problems, right? And reach out to people if you can. If you don't have anybody, find somebody. You can find somebody, right? I don't accept excuses if I don't have anybody. Find someone. Nominate someone to be your thunder buddy, right? Or if you've got a pet, my cat's my thunder buddy. But just have someone. You're not a freaking island, right? Even if it's attractive, just stop it. You're human. You're not an island. Find somebody.
Listen, on that note, thank you so much for your time, Shiggy. It's been a brilliant podcast. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
And speak to you soon. Bye now.
Bye.